My name's Cameron. I am in recovery from an eating disorder. I was diagnosed with anorexia and bulimia nervosa when I was about 15. It was kind of brought about, in my experience, it was brought about by a traumatic experience. I eventually later struggled coming to terms with my own sexuality. And that kind of feeling of shame and guilt almost around that was really turned inwards and became self-loathing, a real sense of self-hatred. And I can remember almost exactly when something snapped in my brain almost. I was on holiday in Mexico and I caught a bug and I'd started losing weight because of it. I remember looking at myself in the mirror and realised that I'd lost weight. And it was that voice suddenly appeared of that, looking at myself in the mirror, of like that deep almost self-hatred. And for me, that's kind of where my eating disorder journey started, if that makes sense. I think I had this sense of I didn't fit in with my peers because I was the only one that I knew was gay. And then I looked, you think of your stereotypical gay body type. I didn't fit that either. And it was like the sense of I don't fit in anywhere. I need to almost self-correct. When I was in school, I was horrifically gay bashed. I went to a religious school and we used to stand in the playground on like the climbing frames and preach about how being gay is awful. And like, I went to a school of a very small number of people in it, 50 people in my year, and to be the only one really felt really isolated. And back then, I used to put paper up on my mirrors and things like that because I just couldn't look at myself. I couldn't stand myself. It absorbed almost 100% of my thought capacity at the time. The thoughts you wouldn't think they're not just necessarily about body image. It's like this broader set of insecurities and faults that it's almost like a voice in your head is shouting all the time. And I suppose when I was really ill, that voice was so loud, it was almost as if I'd been locked out. When I say I didn't like to look at myself in the mirror, but once I got really ill, I did. But then pair it with the fact that, I was horrifically depressed and suicidal, and I would be on the floor crying all day, really, just by myself in my room. It was horrific. People started to notice once I had lost a noticeable amount of weight, and it was weird, the behavioural changes. I got really, really short with people and quite nasty and vindictive about things. My mum and dad noticed that I was kind of losing weight and these changes in my behaviour. They took me to my GP and he was great. He referred me to CAMS. I think it was seen within a couple of months maximum. I met my psychiatrist and I met my psychologist. I also had a dietitian. I had a family therapist, which was an interesting one. I felt at the time that family therapy was a bit like we'd have a shouting match for an hour once a week and then we wouldn't talk to each other for the next week until we came back again. And I really despised, when I was ill, I really despised my parents. I suppose they were trying to challenge the eating disorder thoughts. They did the best that they could, parents, nobody tells you how to deal with these things. And with hindsight, if I were a parent and in the same situation with them, I wouldn't have done much differently. But it was really good that, in a sense, because that relationship with my parents was kind of mended eventually over time as I got better. And I feel we've come out a stronger family for it. We've got a much better awareness of each other. My one biggest fear of treatment, like I did not want to engage with treatment because I knew that they were going to make me fat. And I always thought, if I go, I'm going to put on weight. But it was actually my now sister-in-law at the time said, don't worry about it, you'll put an inch on everywhere and you'll never notice. And you know, they were great. My older brother was great, and his wife were great at the time. And eventually, you know, started eating better. It was what we had to do, is I had to eat by the clock. So 8 o'clock breakfast, midday lunch, and then 5 o'clock dinner. Like, I had to be really regimented because I stopped feeling hunger. I used to go days without eating anything at all. And suddenly it was like, oh, we've got, you know, your body's like, oh, we're eating again. And then I suppose with the energy, just the restoring that energy and those nutrients, I was like, oh, suddenly it became a bit easier to think normally, rationally about things. And then that kind of we just built on that slowly. And suddenly I was kind of eventually back to a healthier place where I didn't feel that awful about myself. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that the eating disorder just suddenly went away. I'm always conscious that it's there. And some days I have bad days still. And it's sometimes a case of, like, even now, going to speak to someone when things get particularly worse. And I've started antidepressant medication with my GP now. And I just have to I'm sort of at the point where I just kind of take every day as it is. And I'm always aware that there is a possibility that I could relapse, but I do all the things that I can to make sure we don't get to that point whilst I'm still thinking rationally, if that makes sense. I think if there was someone sat across from me at an eating disorder now, I suppose if it were me at the time, to let them know that it's okay, and to kind of appreciate that as you're going through a lot. And there's no real need to do it by yourself. I suppose there are people that you can talk to, and even if you didn't feel comfortable right now seeking out professional help, it's often just quite good to tell someone else what's going on, because it's an incredibly isolating experience. And you might be surprised, like, they might not necessarily understand completely, but they might not have the reaction that you think they would. And they might be able to kind of help you and support you into getting more professional help. Just finding a friend or a family member or someone you care about to let them know.